Welcome to Math 291 Calculus 3 or Vector Calculus. This is a course that will be taught by two instructors. The taping of these lectures that you basically will be watching were done over the past 5 months by me. My name is Professor Dawson, and my co-instructor is Armanpreet Panu. So there's a picture of the two of us sort of on your right. So just a brief background, I've been teaching at the University of Toronto since 1988, and I've taught vector calculus course for the past 8 years, and I've been making changes over the past 5 or 6 years to the course and try to integrate more material which is relevant to your 3rd and 4th year in the ECE program. Some of the notes are going to be from the textbook, the assigned textbook, and some of the notes are a form of reading assignments. All of these will be have been posted, and so you can start downloading them. All the office hours for the instructor will be online, and you can reach me at the email address that's mentioned here. And all of my online sessions will be done with the video turned off, since the external monitor is in a different location, and it might be a little bit annoying to constantly have to watch things moving around. The co-instructor, Armanpreet Panu, is a graduate student in the Department of Mathematics. He's currently doing his PhD. His office hours are also online, and he can be reached at the address as indicated below. All right, so just first of all, a brief introduction and some basic material. This is a first course in multivariable calculus, and this is just sort of a quick snapshot of what you'll be covering. We'll be looking at functions of several variables, various graphing techniques. This is a very visual course. So if you can picture things in 3D, you're already quite a ways ahead. The notion of limits when you're dealing with more than one variable. What about continuity? Concept of the directional derivative and the gradient. These are new concepts that basically only have relevance when we're dealing with more than one variable. We'll be also looking at multiple integrals and this concept of the Jacobian. This is all new material. And then we'll look at line integrals, surface integrals, and then we basically will develop the concept of the divergence and curl of a vector field. From all of this, basically we end up with two very fundamental theorems that are used in vector calculus, namely divergence theorem and Stokes theorem. They're basically applied in a 3D setting. And we want to see how they are applied in an application context, which is essentially not the traditional approach. However, we want you to be prepared for the second term when you take the course ECE 221 S, which is on electric and magnetic fields. And there you really need to have the mathematical background to work on problems where the main emphasis will be on the physics, not so much on the math. The Green's flux theorem and circulation theorem are 2D versions of the divergence theorem and Stokes theorems respectively that will basically sort of close the course. All right, so this is a breakdown of the different lecture sections. There are approximately 427 students in this class, so things have been broken up into 4 sections. I'll be responsible for sections 101 and 102. And Mr. Panu is responsible for section 103 and 104. You've seen the allotted times. You know, I basically have a Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday for lectures 101 and 102. 103 and 104 are different. I've also indicated a star. The star basically means that those lectures will be done online. So the first lecture in a week is done in class. Okay, so that basically you should keep in mind. We also have office hours. I've indicated what they are, and these will be also online. I basically will provide links to all these meetings in one consolidated place in the course the course description, and so that you can click on it and join the meeting at the appropriate time. So if you're enrolled in section 101, then you can only access the meetings assigned for section 101. Office hours basically would be, for me, 101 and 102, and office hours for Mr. Panu would be for only sections 103 and 104. So the material to follow comes from these 3 documents which have been uploaded: course description document, schedule document, and questions to prepare for prior to a lecture Q&A session. These are the documents that you really should understand inside and out. Okay, so just a very brief review of what the videos are, the reading material online software. Posted reading assignments. Not all sections need to be read, excluding reading assignment 3. So reading assignment 3, you read cover to cover. Textbook, there are 3 versions, and so there are details in terms of ordering them. So one version is with MyLab, which just gives you additional resources. A version without MyLab, which is less expensive. And then there's also a standalone Pearson eText. It's the least expensive, but no access to MyLab study resources. There'll be a posted video for each lecture. There's a posted video for each tutorial. You don't have to watch the tutorial videos, but you'll find tutorials videos 9 and 10 very, very helpful. So I would basically make sure you see those. There's also the posted list of questions to consider prior to a lecture Q&A session. All right, so the interactive and figures and simulations are used extensively. You may wish to download the Wolfram CFD player at the following location, but it's not required since all interactive files in these lecture notes are available on the cloud. You can also download programs to visualize math problems, GeoGebra being one and the other one Math3D. We will use Math3D extensively in these notes. In fact, there are a lot of interactive simulations in the actual videos, the posted video notes, as well as the lecture notes. And so you can do all sorts of things. It's a very simple program. You can change colors, brightness, rotate the object, and do whatever it is to suit your taste. So it's actually a very nice program, and yet they're quite simple. All right, so this is just a snapshot of the document questions to prepare for lecture Q&A section. And this is just a snippet taken from the very beginning of term. You'll see that things that you need to read for a given week will be color coded. And so that means, for instance, here, September 6th, right, lecture 0, 1A, 1B, and 1C. And if there is a 1D, there would be to follow. They've all been color coded, and these are the ones you need to view. The following week, we'll be discussing any questions you might have regarding these videos. And also, after you have gone through a video, there are a series of questions that you should go through and see if you can answer them. If you're having problems, then of course you can bring this up during the Q&A session. Towards the end, there'll be fewer and fewer questions as we move towards the end of the term, because most of this is wrap up, or it's more or less self-obvious because the lecture video material is just worked out problems, so there's no need to repeat it. You'll notice that there's a section in blue that would be the week of November 29th, right? Those will basically be the videos we'll be discussing, and the week of December 6th, those will be the videos that we'll be discussing. All right, so that's the way things are more or less laid out. All right, so this is a snapshot of the timetable. This is related just to the lectures and also the time slots where the different tutorial sections take place. You'll notice that all of the lecture sections basically have been annotated with either the in-class or online. So you'll see that the first lecture Q&A session every week is an in-class section. Everything else thereafter is online. And so the idea would be to essentially review a certain series of videos the week before. We'll discuss them here, but I'll basically have priority. So for instance, we'll discuss 1 followed by 2 followed by 3 and in class. The following online session priority will be 2 followed by 3 followed by 1, and then in the last online session that week, priority will start with 3 followed by 2 followed by 1. So effectively we get an equal balance. Hopefully most of your questions get resolved in the end class session, and so in online sessions there'll be just some follow-up. But particularly for those people who are stranded in other countries, I think you'll need the online, and these online sessions will also be recorded. You'll notice that there is one here green. This is just a graduate course that I teach. And so this just tells you that I'll be busy during this time. So if you're trying to send me an email, you probably will get no answer. Here are my office hours online, and here are Mr. Panu's office hours. They're actually from 7:30 to 8:30, but they span these 2 blocks here. Just a note that I'll be out of town September 18th and September 30th, October 5th inclusive. So Zachary Leger, who is one of the TAs, will look after the lecture Q&A sessions and also the office hours on September the 29th. Other than that, basically, I'll be looking at after all of the lectures and office sections that have been assigned. Just a word here about Monday tutorial sessions for Thanksgiving. They've been canceled and they've been moved to 2 p.m. on Wednesday, October the 13th. Monday lecture Q&A session on Thanksgiving is canceled and has been moved to an alternate time, but we don't have the date yet. This is to be determined. You'll find out probably towards the beginning of term. We don't need calculators and aids for the quizzes or for the exam. The quizzes have been designed in such a way that everything can be done quite simply. Okay, so this is just a snapshot of the problems covered in tutorial video and tutorial Q&A. This is from Table 3, the math schedule document. I've just taken a few snippets. So for instance, the week of 13, there'll be tutorial videos 0 and 1. And this sort of gives you the indication of the problems that were covered in the video. And these are the problems you were attempted to do or book problems before watching the tutorial video. So this gives you a sort of a guideline on a week-by-week basis. So you should be basically working through the tutorials and the lecture material side by side for a given week, because we'll always make sure that essentially both are covered in a week, and then we move on from there. By reading week, you can see there's a part here, then this is your study week, and then of course things will carry on from there. So this reading assignment 4 is posted, reading assignment 5 is also posted. So the last two tutorials, that's 10 and 11, look a bit different because reading assignment 5 is quite different from a classical math book because we're actually trying to apply it, the divergence theorem and Stokes theorem, in an actual application setting to prepare you for ECE 221S. And so you'll notice here that there are 3 different versions. And the reason there is because part of the class will be getting a quiz based on version A. Part of the class will get a quiz based on version B, and the remainder part of the class will get a quiz based on version C. And the tutorial for 11 is the same, but there'll be no quiz on that. However, on the final exam, I could be asking you any one of them, but I'll give you advance notice. So you'll know beforehand which one you need to be studying. Anyway, this gives all the details that you need so that you can prepare yourself on a weekly basis. So this is probably the thing that really is most important for you. That's the quiz content and schedule from Table 4, which is the schedule document, the math schedule document. And you'll notice here, for instance, you've got quizzes every other week before reading week and 3 quizzes every week at the end of term. This is going to be a bit heavy, but the thing is that the back end of the course really is the most detailed. And also we were building up to it slowly, and so here is where we really have to do the heavy lifting. It won't be so bad in the sense you have a reading week, so hopefully you can catch up. But this more or less tells you the quiz content for that quiz, and it's always going to be on a Wednesday from 1:10 to 2 p.m., a 50-minute quiz. These marks basically will end up on CrowdMark. How that happens is still being discussed. You don't have to worry about it because the TA will be looking after it. Also, just make sure you follow all the COVID protocols in the quizzes and the tutorials in terms of masking and things of that nature. This is important, particularly for the TAs themselves. Anyway, this is more or less the outline we're looking at, and you can see here the quiz 7. There's version A that tells you the quiz you'll be getting. This is for version B that tells you the quiz you're getting, and version C. Okay. The other thing which will be helpful is that just before, that's on the Sunday before a quiz, we'll give you more specific guidelines regarding the quiz content. So we'll get much more focus. We might say, for instance, that there'll be one part that deals with something of this nature and another part that deals with something of that nature. So that means you can be a little bit more focused in your studying. All right, what about the quiz grades and missed quizzes? The math course description document gives a summary of the most important points. You were asked to read through it. Quizzes will be marked using CrowdMark. Just a couple of issues because we have to do some scanning. Please use a dark pencil when writing a quiz. We're only going to count the best 6 out of 7 quizzes. You must submit a petition in the event of sickness, and any quiz that's missed for valid reasons will result in the weighting of the exam being increased proportionately. All right, this is just a summary of the MIS protocol, quiz protocol. This is also in the course description document, so I'm not going to spend too much time on it. You can read it very quickly. Anyways, I'm just going to move on. All right, so this is the breakdown. The stuff shaded in grade would be for people who write all 7 quizzes. So in that case, we'll count the best 6, each one equally weighted at 10%. That means 60% of your mark base goes towards, of the total mark is based on quizzes alone. So that means 40% is based on the final exam. If you happen to miss a quiz, right, then basically we were going to convert that percentage to the final exam. So there's a summary here of all the possible options that can exist depending on people missing 1 quiz or 2 quizzes. Again, this would be for legitimate reasons. All right, what about quiz grading and regrading policy? So let's just go through each one in turn. Prior to reading week, quizzes are returned online 2 weeks after you wrote a quiz. We may be able to do that a lot faster, but we have a number of problems at the moment regarding 20 or 30 students who are stranded and who can't make it here. And so we want to make sure when we release marks, we do it all at the same time. So expect some issues at the beginning of the term. But after reading week, quizzes are returned online 1 week after you wrote the quiz. All questions regarding grading of quizzes should be directed towards a TA assigned to grading your quiz and not to your instructor. The course description list tells you exactly who graded your quiz. You must submit an email request for regrading within 3 days of the work being returned to you. I mean, we basically have to insist on that. Otherwise, we just ignore the request. To request a regrade, please send an email to the grader with your name, booklet number. And by the way, the booklet number is located at the top of the page. You can see a little picture on your right to indicate where that is. And also a justification for a grade increase. And the question you want regraded. We don't want frivolous requests. I mean, if it's a simple addition error, it's understood. But if we're trying to sort of get a quarter of a mark out of something, we basically ignore it. Please note that regrading may result in your mark being lowered. Sometimes we find a mistake which actually is not in your favor. Once a regrade is granted or denied, the grader will reply to you via email. If there are any changes, the student will be automatically able to see the changes on CrowdMark. Okay, so here's the protocol for Q&A and office hours. The MAT291 course description and the schedule documents give a summary of the most important points. Please read through it. It's all there. Main points, just summarized. The first lecture Q&A session on a weekly basis will be in class, and the remaining 2 lecture Q&A sessions held on a weekly basis will be online. Of course, the noted exception is the first week. The first in-class lecture Q&A session will be Thursday, September the 9th for sections 101, 102, and 104, and Friday, September the 10th for section 103. Tutorial Q&A sessions will be in class. Q&A sessions are only for material covered in the previous week's videos, problems, and reading material. And online Q&A sessions for the lectures will be recorded because we still have a number of students who are stranded elsewhere around the world, at least on a temporary basis. An online lecture Q&A section will be canceled if no one shows up during the first 15 minutes of the scheduled lecture time. Make sure you have attempted to solve the questions in the questions to prepare for prior to lecture and QA session document in preparation for the Q&A session. And then just a note about office hours. The office hours for lectures and tutorial assistance are for generic problems associated with previous material which you had a problem understanding or concept that you're still struggling with. Office hours will not be recorded. Now, this is important. I think if you're going to want office hours, please make a request 24 hours in advance. Reason being, we need to prepare. It might be 5 students all have the same problem, so we can consolidate everything in one answer and basically save a lot of time and be able to answer more questions in one go. So please, just even if it's a basic question about, I'm not certain about problem something and I got here, and it's good enough. I just need some sort of a lead to know what I should be looking at and getting ready. All right, because we do need to organize our time, and we certainly don't want to waste a TA's time, nor do I want to waste your time. It takes a little effort on your part, but you'll find that more and more people will be serviced. There's also always Piazza. We'll be monitoring the Piazza so that if people have questions, you might get people, some of the TAs, who basically are looking after the classroom activity. They've been asked to respond, so you'll never know from whom you'll get answers. Right? I and also Mr. Pano will be looking at it on a frequent basis as well. If you have an office hour request, please put it in the subject line so we can organize things more effectively from our end. Once I see office hour requests, I basically put them all aside in a separate folder, and then I can scan through them quickly and get ready. All right, so the last two tables are hopefully beneficial to you. This is time management. This is for before reading week, and it sort of shows you what is covered in a given week. So watch the lecture videos this week. And so effectively you do all the work, and then the week after you basically ask questions about that. So it means read, work on problems, look at the videos, and the week after any questions you have, you can raise in the appropriate forum, either in the lecture Q&A section or the tutorial Q&A session. Okay, so this is basically how it works. The stuff shaded in blue and green is more to do with the beginning of term, because we don't have a full week, and no tutorial in the first week, and so this basically tells you when certain things will be discussed. This gives you the quiz and which videos apply to that specific quiz, so you can see that. You've also got the table I previously showed you, so in combination you have all the material you require to get prepared for a particular quiz. And then after reading week, you can sort of see here, what's happening. I just make a note here. Check to make sure you're writing the correct quiz. Here, this is the last one, because you have 3 versions. So you have to look at your tutorial section and just make sure that you're writing the correct quiz. Now, the quizzes will be given to you in the lecture. All right, so there should be no issue, but that might be an issue if someone is still stranded. We need to make sure that they get the right quiz. And also, there are people who are disabled, and they get their quizzes not in class but in another location, and so we don't want any confusion to get set up. Okay, so this is from Table 4, the math schedule document, and refer to Table 1 in this document. That more or less is a very quick summary of what's contained, like I said, in the 3 major documents that you should read before term starts. But we will basically have everything up and running before Labor Day weekend. Anyway, so thanks for listening, and hopefully the course goes well for everyone.